writes, with the White House card moving to Trump's birthday, does the need for American fighters go away as it's no longer a USA celebration? No. This is the thing. I tried to argue this with BC, once again, utterly vindicated. It's on his fucking birthday, and people being like, this is about, I can't even say it without laughing. This is about the history of the country. This is about the office of the president. The fucking guy is throwing himself a birthday party. And the reason why you know that's true is that his supporters love this idea for that reason. Like, they don't even believe the American history part about it. You don't need to bother with it. They love the idea that it's his birthday. They wish to reward him and lavish him with praise. Okay, to that point. But they might need some kind of tangential hook to, again, this will all depend on how the UFC and the government frame it, to what extent it becomes eligible for federal funds, and to what extent does it need to be connected to the broader 250 celebration. And even though it's not on January, even though it's not on July 4th, there could still be a connection that can be made to this, sort of longer set of activities all related to it that precede the actual date itself. And then if that's part of it, then it makes it eligible for federal funds, right? So that's something to pay attention to. But like all these people being, this is about the office of the presidency. No, fuck, it isn't. The stupidest people, pay attention to what I'm about to say very clearly. The people in MMA who say this is about the office of the presidency, it's really not about Trump. Yes, he's a fan, but blah, blah, blah. These are the dumbest people you will know. These are the most gullible people you know. Or at a bare minimum, these are the most dishonest people that you know, because even they don't believe that shit, but they're just going to say it because they want to get it through. It has nothing to do with any of that shit. Trump is doing this shit as a reward because he tried to steal a presidential election. He had a fake elector scheme, which other people would have gone to jail for, but we don't know how that turned out. His image was in tatters. The UFC helped rehabilitate him. He ran back for office, and they helped convince young men to get him back into office. This is their reward. This is his reward to them. That is what this is, right? And the fact that he's throwing it on his birthday is because, of course, he has to make everything about himself because that's what he always does. That's the score here. And here's how you know it's true, because when I say that, his supporters are like, yeah, damn right. They don't say, oh, that cannot. They might deny it for a second because they don't want to put on those appearances. But when you really drill down, they fucking love it for that reason. Just say it. Just admit it. Why do we have to do this kabuki theater about this is the Washington and the Delaware? I mean, it's got who is so fucking stupid they believe that? Even his supporters don't believe that. Y'all know you don't believe that. You know what the score is. He's throwing himself a birthday party, and this is a reward for the UFC for getting him back in that fucking house. No more, no less. That's the game. This is a guy who gives ambassadorships to important people who fucking donated to his campaign. This is what he does. And if you're a supporter of him, this is what you would consider to be a good thing. He rewards his political allies lavishly. Like, that's a thing he's known for. Like, come on. Like, we don't just cut the shit, is my request. You can decide that it's a good thing, and I can decide whether or not I agree. But can we at least have a conversation about the fucking reality of it all? That's my very minimal request to you. What would you say is the likelihood of the UFC White House card being as follows? Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, John Jones, I'm assuming, obviously, against Alex Pereira, and then Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. This person writes, that way, the UFC won't have to occupy every champion on the roster and still be able to produce a great card. They'd only be occupying Kayla, as Pereira would have already vacated the title at that point, and the winner of Yuri versus Olberg would have just won it. We'd be able to get a great White House card while also being able to have great cards leading up and following the event as well. So again, you'd have a title fight at 35, presumably, for Harrison versus Nunes. You'd have no title on the line in the co-main, and then you'd have McGregor versus Chandler, also non-title, on that card as well. Well, I'll say this, I think. If you're looking to maximize star power without compromising the championship schedule and the way in which, like, who's available. And to your point, I mean, everyone's kind of hyped about the White House card, which obviously, the UFC is telling you to do that. They're telling you we're going to make it great. But at the same time, they have to make sure that the entire calendar holds up, as we all know, right? So there's probably going to be some lean time, maybe, in the couple of months leading up to the card, or maybe in a couple of months after, or both. But they can't punt on the whole year, especially if it's the first year of the Paramount relationship. So they have to take care of it. And I would add something further. Your card, as such, as it's written here, kind of accomplishes that. And then I would simply add, if you throw in Ronda Rousey, I'm assuming you're not going to give her a title fight, but assuming you throw that in there with a Misha Tate trilogy or a Holly Holm one-off rematch, or maybe you could even do Juliana Pena, you're also not occupying the title, and you're adding on a card both Conor and Ronda. Granted, they are both post-prime. They are both popularity prime, I would also say as well, post that as well. So, we're not getting, this is not 2016. However, obviously they would still have a significant degree of popularity, and then it frees you up to make sure you have other title fights on the other parts of the calendar. So yes, what your goal is to maximize star power while not occupying the championship schedule, that card, as you proposed, would get you pretty far. It accomplishes a lot. And as you indicated, you would have an American, in this particular case, Harrison, Jones, and Chandler, in all three of those contests. If you throw Rousey on there, there's another American in the card, and probably her opponent's going to be American too. So it solves that. The question is that what the UFC wants? Is that what do they want? And do they want, I mean, the cost of a card like that, if you had to put Jones and McGregor on it, I don't know how they're going to work out these new deals that don't have pay-per-view on it. So that part is a little strange. Do you want to bunch up Rousey, Jones, and McGregor, all three of which are going to be pricey? I don't think Jones is going to be $30 million pricey, but he's going to be more expensive than Chandler. Do you want to spend money in that particular way? I don't know. They might. These are all the questions that we don't really have an answer to. The only thing I can say is your card accomplishes as indicated without messing up the rest of the schedule. But I just don't know how the UFC wants to pay, like how they want to manage the rest of the calendar and how they want to pay for it. These are pretty big considerations. And part of how they want to pay for it is, Zach Arnold has speculated that this America 250 fund, even though this is happening a month, or I should say 2 or 3 weeks anyway, prior to July 4th, that it would it's still going to be part of potentially this America 250 fund as a way to essentially write off the costs of staging the event to the taxpayer. And again, I'm not saying that that's part of the purse, but if the UFC can get the federal taxpayers to cover the cost of the event, lawn repair. I know they're saying that they're going to be on the hook for $700,000, but again, they might be eligible for some of this money as well, in which case they could just say, oh, well, we had to pay for it, and we paid for it by use of these federal funds. Again, some of this remains to be seen, but how it's funded also makes a big difference. Remember, the Sphere show was very, very expensive, and they essentially solved that problem by getting Riyadh Season to be a sponsor on it. So they had this like $20 million budget essentially that they were on the hook for, and to make that work, by according to and again, the UFC of course has $20 million to spend, but the way in which they spend it and how they spend it, these things could be somewhat fixed in place, relatively speaking. So they sold a sponsorship to Saudi Arabia on it as a way to help defray some of the costs. Again, whether that will happen here, who the hell knows? I think it's kind of difficult to say. But I would keep in mind these considerations. And also, not for nothing, but having Jones and McGregor on the card, you're going to invite a certain kind of press, not the MMA media, but like the broader public. But even that's not really the most important part. It's like, I know Dana says he feels like he can rely on Conor. I'm not so sure how true that is. And also, listen, Jones is obviously freshly suffering what can only be described. I don't know the circumstances, but I don't have to know that, probably losing a brother before the age of 40 is a profound tragedy. So there's that they are suffering, which would, I think, disrupt the life and potentially the professional schedule of any athlete. to suffer a similar circumstance. Again, I don't want to speculate much more beyond that, but enough to say that these things in life can be incredibly, not always, but can be incredibly disruptive. And to say nothing of the previous history, obviously before that, and how unreliable he has been proven to be for other reasons. You want both those guys? I mean, you can do it. You're running a bit of a risk. Feel like it might be one or the other, but who knows? It's a good question. Let's just see what problem the UFC is trying to solve by the way in which they build it.